Hello everyone! Today I wanted to share with you what I have read so far in August and what I'm currently reading. New location, maybe a little echoey, can you hear that? I'm in my new library. Slowly but surely I'm moving things over. I've got a bookcase that I already had right here. My desk is built, the walls are painted, and basically I have no books on any shelves, so I have no pretty backgrounds. Life. I hope you don't mind, but I did want to share with you what I have read so far in August and what I've thought of them. So we're gonna start out on a high. I hope you guys don't mind, but I don't know if you guys remember, I did a try a chapter tag where I asked you guys to suggest books to me that I should read, and many of you actually suggested that I pick up The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I read a bunch of different chapters from different books, and this was the one that I went with, and I'm so glad that I did because I ended up giving this 5 stars. I didn't know what to expect exactly from this. I've never read Matt Haig before, and now I will be reading many books by him. It feels like self-help in a book, in a fiction book, which is very different. So this follows a woman named Nora Seed. She is severely depressed. She feels like she's let everyone down. She feels entirely alone. And just as she's decided to end her life, she feels like there is no point to her life. She ends up at a library, the Midnight Library. She has a woman there, a librarian, who shows her all of these books on all of these shelves, and there are so many books. And she says, all of these books are examples of other versions of yourself. If you had chosen to keep swimming, if you had chosen to stay in the band, if you had chosen all of these different things, and it can be minute things too, if you had chosen to keep your cat indoors instead of having an outdoor cat, if you had chosen certain things, this is how your life would have happened. And she thinks, oh my goodness, like this is gonna be the best, like I'm gonna have all of these options and I'll probably still wanna end my life, but at least I'll feel like I've accomplished different things. And this explores the concept of regret. And I loved the concept of regret. We all have things in our life where we're like, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? And like, this really makes you think about your own life and letting those things go. And it also explores the concept of living your life for others and how others want you to live your life, because many of us can easily get trapped into that, doing things we think other people would want us to do. And you can shape your whole life around that. You really can. It's very, very easy to do that. And this challenges that. I just thought it was so heartwarming. I was like at the edge of my seat for certain things, that's for sure. I loved the whole ride, and I read it so quickly, like maybe a day and a half. And it's not a big book, like, you know, it's just around 300 pages. I just so recommend this. It's so uplifting. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to read more Matt Haig. That is for sure. Next, we're moving into my 4-star reads. I have 2 here. The first is a more gothic, more sinister tale. And this is called The Shape of Darkness by Laura Purcell. This is her latest book, and I ended up really liking it. I listened to it on audio, and this follows a woman who creates, oh, now I can't even remember what they're called. She's an artist. She does portraits of people, but out of cutouts. Like she cuts out their portrait, and that's what she does for a living. She is kind of forced into that. She doesn't have a family to take care of her. She has to be self-sufficient. And there are all sorts of men who come and sit down for her, and she creates their portraits for them, and they go on their merry way, except now they're suddenly one by one not going on their merry way. Essentially, they come to her, they sit in front of her, they leave, and then they die horribly. Like, they are being murdered off one by one. And she is very lucky and happy to have her sisters, her brother-in-law there for her. So her sister passed away in a horrific accident, and she was not close to her sister. She was forcibly close to her sister, I guess. Her sister was very possessive over her, and she was not a very nice woman at all. And so, you know, her brother-in-law lost his wife, and she lost her sister, and they've remained close. So she really leans on him, and she starts to explore the idea of going to a spiritualist because she wants to know how these men are dying. She's really not encouraged by her brother-in-law to do this at all. He's a doctor, so he's like, don't even think about doing that. But she does it anyway, and she meets a young girl who is a spiritualist, conducts seances, and interacts with the dead. And it's about their relationship. This was so layered. This was so twisty-turny. I ended up really liking it. It felt very atmospheric, a lot of fun. It's given me a lot of hope again for Laura Purcell. I will say, if you liked Affinity by Sarah Waters, you might like this. There are different vibes to it, but it's got the same darkness. Both of them have to do with spiritualists. And so I will say that, you know, if you like that, you might like this. So yeah, 4 stars for that. Another book that I listened to on audio was Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Now I will say, I feel like if I had read this physically, I might have given it 5 stars. I had a hard time sometimes remembering who was who. This happens. So this book all centers around Black British women, and I think one man. And they're all living in London, and it's about each of their experiences being Black in Britain. And they're all really well developed and all interlinked. So I loved that. So if you liked Homegoing, this does a very similar thing where they are all interlinked, but even more interlinked. Like this begins at a play that one of the women is directing, and many of the characters that you'll meet in here are at the play and interacting with one another. And I did very much enjoy this. It was very amusing at times. It was also very hard-hitting and just heartbreaking at times. This explores so much. It explores rape. It explores domestic abuse, you know, queer relationships. I was just so enthralled, and just I really did enjoy it. It's just that I had a hard time distinguishing between characters when there were so many. Definitely something that I could read again, and I'm sure that I would remember as it went on. But yeah, I still think that I preferred the other book that I read by her a little bit more. What in the world was it called? Just a second. Mr. Loverman. Yeah, I think I preferred Mr. Loverman because there weren't so many perspectives. I sometimes find that hard to follow. Just me being dumb me, you know? So there's that. But 4 stars, very good. Highly recommend. And then the last book that I have read so far in August is Yours Cheerfully. Now, I ended up giving this 3 stars. This is the continuation of Emmy's story. So in Dear Mrs Byrd, we meet Emmy, who is a young journalist. It is World War II, and she's like, right, I'm going to be a war journalist. This is going to be great. She ends up working at a women's magazine in a women's column, and people write in, mostly women write in to Mrs Byrd, and ask Mrs. Byrd for advice. And Mrs. Byrd isn't very nice, and she doesn't give very good advice. And so Emmy takes it upon herself to start writing back to all of these women. And she is completely secretly. And this is the continuation of her story at the magazine. I preferred Dear Mrs. Byrd by far to Yours Cheerfully, because that book was, yes, light in some ways, but really dealt with some hard-hitting things. In this book, we really focus on the magazine being encouraged by the government to encourage women to get to work with the war effort. So to get into factories, to build things, because the men are away at war and they still need things to be made, and they need things to be made for the war. And the women who are going into these positions are really struggling because they still need people to take care of their young children. And it really centered around that. And it wasn't enough to keep my interest. I got bored a lot of the time. There wasn't enough drama a lot of the time. I don't know, it just didn't seem as important as Dear Mrs. Byrd. It was fine, but just not what I was hoping for. Okay, now let's chat about the books that I am currently reading. I have just started, like I'm 20 something pages into this Tenderland by William Kent Kruger. This is our Patreon book club pick. Oh, that makes a lot of noise. This is our Patreon book club pick for August. And we are going to be meeting towards the end of August. So I really got to get a start on this. This follows a group of children who are all orphans. It is the summer of 1932. And all of these orphans go to the Lincoln Indian Training School. And one of the orphans is rebellious. He likes to, push the limits. Also, they're not treated properly as children in any way, shape, or form. And so he pushes back. And I think he does something at some point that forces him to run away. He commits apparently a terrible crime and he is forced to run away. And so he is running away, and several of his friends come with him. His brother comes with him, whose name is Albert. Their best friend, Mose, goes with him, and then also a little girl named Emmy. And they all climb into a canoe and head for the mighty Mississippi. And it follows their story. And so far I have laughed. I have felt like I was about to cry. It's very emotional and I am enjoying it. So I'm reading that. And now I picked this one up and put this one down because is anyone else like this where you know that you have to read a book by a certain time and then you start panicking that you're not going to get it done in time, so you stop everything so you could pick it up and make sure you read it. So I was reading 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard, which is a thriller. I have put it down, but it won't be for long, right? I'm really enjoying this too. This follows a couple in Ireland. They are single and meet at a supermarket, and they're like, oh, this could be a good thing. They're flirty, they go out on some dates, and then COVID happens. COVID-19 arrives at Ireland's shores, and they have to go into lockdown. The whole country does, and they decide to move in together to explore what this could be. So we follow them 56 days ago, and then we follow them in present day. Specifically, we're following a detective who is arriving at their apartment building only to discover that one of the people in this couple has died. And I think they have died a brutal death. So I'm assuming one of them has killed the other. And you find out what happened. That sounds fun. And it is fun. She's a great writer. I'm 50 pages in. So I'll pick that up after I get finished with this Tenderland. And then last but not least, what I'm listening to on audio is a classic. I picked up The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I am finally reading this. I have wanted to read this for so long. This book has been on my shelves for so long that you can see that it's kind of yellowed. Yeah, so this is a classic book about a man, Walter Hartwright. He is walking home one day in London very late at night, and he sees this woman who is dressed completely in white. She is in trouble. She reaches out to him. She's asking him for help to get to a certain destination, and he agrees to help her. And she won't tell him very much, but you can clearly see she's terrified of something, but she's not very forthright with what exactly she's afraid of. And so he has since taken on, I think he's taken on a job slightly out of London, and I think he sees a woman who looks like the woman in white, and he's like, is it the same woman? And it goes from there. The mystery of the woman in white. I'm really enjoying it so far. Like, this is very, very well written. I'm totally entranced. I'm totally in. And this is my first Wilkie Collins, so hopefully I continue to enjoy it a lot, and I'll let you know. But that's everything I have read so far in August and what I am currently reading. Let me know in the comments below what you have read and what you are reading at the moment. And I will chat with you very soon, hopefully next time with a nicer background. Goodbye!